Imagine if you went from feeling fine every day to feeling amazing. How would your life be different? Everyone has the ability to feel amazing again and again. You just need the right tools to get there. If you're ready to feel amazing, stick around. Now, here's the host of the I'm Not Fine show with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns.
Welcome back to another episode on the I'm Not Fine show. And today I am so incredibly excited to have my dear friend Sharon Weaver on the show with me because we connected last year at some point. And here's the thing about this, Sharon, is we have never met in person, but we have connected and bonded on so many levels in conversations that we've had, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. So I wanted to bring you on here because I'm not going to spill the beans on all the things that we're going to be talking about. But Sharon and I bonded because we both come from a very religious cult background. And so we have a lot of similarities, different but similarities. So Sharon is the CEO of Smarter Consulting, a tech consultancy she founded to diversify the industry's talent pool. And I have to tell you, like, some of the things that I have learned from you, Sharon, and what you guys do in a business, like, I am always just like blown away. I'm like, you're a badass CEO and entrepreneur. So very, very happy to have you on board here, Sharon. Welcome to the show. Let's dive in. Tell us a little bit more about you, and let's surprise everybody with your story.
Yeah, my name is Sharon Weaver, and like you said, I do own an IT consulting firm, and we spend most of our days helping people figure out how to make tech serve them instead of the other way around. I think a lot of people really don't understand technology. They think it's scary, they think it's expensive, they think it's difficult, and at the end of the day, a lot of times it really comes down to processes and people, and really, understanding what it is that you need. And
Yeah.
so we spend a lot of time really helping people to understand what their actual needs are and then make technology make their life better. So that's what I do for my day job.
I love it. We're gonna dive into that because I have something that I actually want to talk about when it comes to technology, because I think that you're absolutely right. Like, we can use technology to help serve us and make our lives so much easier, which now with some of the tools that are coming out, like, it's insane. Like, it's absolutely insane, like, what's happening. So with that being said, I want to dive into your background a little bit of like where you're from and take the listeners on a journey of like understanding where you're from and then how you got to where you are at today. So take us back to wherever you want to start.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My parents love traveling and love going different places, and so I was actually born in Kansas City. And then when I was 6 months old, my parents packed up and they moved to South Carolina so that my dad could go to Bob Jones University, which is a very religious institution. And I lived there for the first couple of years of my life while he got his PhD in Old Testament languages. And
Wow.
while we lived there, he did his dissertation on the Rosetta Stone. And while we lived there, we lived in family housing. And so what's real fun about this is like girls weren't allowed to wear pants, things like that. Like, so we were very limited on what we could and couldn't do when we lived there. And I had a couple siblings that were born there. And then we moved back to Kansas City for a few years after my dad graduated and had a few more siblings, and my dad pastored a couple of churches. And then this was kind of at a time where I think the economy was really tanking bad, and so he went into the military. And so when I was like 8 or 9, he went into the military, and then we moved again to Louisiana for him to be stationed down there. And then from that point on, he moved a lot. And so by the time I had graduated, by the time I was done with high school, I think I went to like 11 different schools and 12 for 12 years or something like that. It
A
was
new
ridiculous.
school every year.
Yep.
Oh my
And
God.
sometimes I had two schools in one year.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
that.
all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what happened after that?
So then after that, I settled down in Kansas City and my parents kind of moved on. I met a boy, and I met a boy when I was 14, and I got pregnant when I was 15. And of course, like every good person, my parents are like, you should get married. And so my boyfriend's, well, like, I guess. Like the most romantic proposal ever. And so we got married at 16 and 17. And
Wow.
now we've been married for 32 years, almost 32 years.
That's
And
quite
so we got married
incredible.
at 16 and 17. And at that point, of course, neither of us had a college education, but we already had a baby. And so we lived with my family for about 6 months, and then we moved out and we got our own place, and we put each other through college. And so we both worked probably I mean, on average, I would say 2 or 3 jobs at any given time, 6, 7 days a week. And what was really great about this is that I grew up, in this very religious 7 day a week work world. And so my work ethic was really strong and I knew what I was doing. And so, like, I was really used to that already. And I had been raised to take care of my siblings. So taking care of a child wasn't a big deal. And I think I had already felt like an adult at 16 years old. I was already ready to have a job and take care of a family and do all these things. And so then we put each other through college. We both got degrees, and we went on with our career, and we ended up having another baby along the way, and we did a lot of other fun things. But long story short, I mean, we started really early, really young, and worked really, really hard for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. At what age did you guys start working?
The very first time I remember working, I was probably 4 or 5. I
Mhm.
remember my grandfather worked at a parking lot, and I would go help him like pick up things and put it in the trash. And he also he ran the livestock exchange for Kansas City.
Mhm.
And so I would go help, like, feed the animals and brush the animals. And my parents worked at a church, obviously, because my dad was the pastor. And so we would make bulletins, or we would go clean the pews, or straighten the hymnals, or
Yeah.
anything like that. And the first time I remember that, I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I remember going and helping with that. And that was just part of our life, is that, day in, day out, our job was to kind of do whatever anybody needed us to help them with around the edges.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally like resonate with that. I mean, I remember at 5 years old, we were washing dishes and carrying wood into the house to fill the wood burning stoves. And it was just normal. And I think that it's truly a testament of your work ethic later on in life, because I think there's a little bit of a balance that we have to find out too later on in life, as an adult life. Like, I had to go through this stage of like, okay, just because you're taking a day off doesn't mean you're lazy. Like, because,
You get a
but
day off.
yeah, what is that? Like, but the reality is it does give you structure, it gives you discipline, it gives you a massive work ethic, and you just do. Like,
Mhm.
if hard things happen, like, you make it sound so easy. You're like, oh, yeah, like, we got pregnant at this age, and then it's like, okay, well, let's get married. And then we put ourselves through college and we had another baby, and we just kept working through. And to the average person, they'd be like, holy crap, like, I could never do that. But your background and like the way that you grew up is what actually conditioned you to be able to then go through that and be okay. And I'm 100% positive it's why you're as successful as you are today, because of those experiences as well. um so I think that's absolutely amazing. What is you guys's background as far as like ancestry? Do you know?
Yes. So my dad loves genealogy, and my husband loves genealogy. And so what's really fun is my dad recently figured out that we are actually direct descendants of somebody who came off the Mayflower. And then on top of that, I'm a direct descendant of Rebecca Town Nurse, of Salem, which is kind of like creepy and weird. What's ironic is my husband is actually a direct descendant of Rebecca Town Nurse's, I think, uncle. And so, like, we're like 23rd cousins.
At least you're not third cousins.
Right, that would be really bad. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's amazing. Okay, so you guys were in that church, and we call it a cult because it was like, at what point did you guys decide this isn't for us?
It's really interesting because I grew up with this world and so did my husband of just we were there all the time. We were
Mhm.
always, church was just it wasn't that you went to church. Church was the fabric of your
Yeah.
entire life.
Yeah.
You were there when you weren't at home, right? So there was always an activity or a dinner or a friend or something that was going on. That was our society. And so as we got older, well, first of all, I know this is going to be shocking to you, but when you are a teenage parent and a teenage um getting married as teenagers, it's not really favorable in the church. They
Yeah.
don't love that idea. So it was, it was a little bit of a struggle for us to kind of fit in because we didn't really fit in with the newly marrieds because we weren't really as old as them. And we didn't fit in with the teen group anymore because we were older than them and we
Hmm.
had a baby. And so we didn't really fit. And I think that was part of it is this social, you have
Yeah.
this social fabric and we didn't fit anywhere anymore. And we still continued to go for quite a while because it's all we knew and we were
Hmm.
very used to participating in it 3 4 5 days a week. And so we went, we did things, we participated, but slowly over time, the more we didn't fit and the more we moved into technology, so my husband and I both went into technology, the more we got a bigger picture of the world and the more we realized, wait, there are more things outside of here than what we knew. And I think there was just kind of a moment where we made a decision of why do we need to spend all of our time, going and doing this? And so we just kind of started slowing down and it's kind of funny that you mentioned that idea of like taking a day off. Like we never had a day off. And then all of a sudden we're, raising this baby and going to school and working two jobs and we're exhausted.
Yeah.
And come Sunday morning, you get up and go to church. And then Sunday afternoon, you go to church. And there was one day I just remember we were like, what if we just stayed home and slept? And I'd never done that in my entire life. And so we did. We like took a day off and we slept and we were like, wow, like there's all this time to just rest and relax. And I think over the years, we just kind of didn't fit. And then we were tired. And so we just kind of slowly started going less and less and backed off in it. And then as we got older and as we worked into our career, we started making new friends and new connections and new networking. And we moved away. And it wasn't so much that it was a bad thing as much as we didn't connect with that group anymore, that fabric anymore. And so at some point we kind of pulled away and we started doing our own thing. And we got a lot of flack for a long time about, oh, are you coming back? And when are you going to come? And we miss you. But the interesting thing was we really didn't have relationships with them outside of that anymore. And so it was difficult because we were like, well, we're coming just to come, we're going just to go. And we didn't need it in our lives anymore. And so it kind of was this weaning thing where we just stopped going. And then one day I just realized we were like, oh, I guess we're just not going there anymore because we started doing new things. And so I
Hmm.
talk to people a lot about change. And when your life changes, a lot of times you let go of things that
Yeah.
don't serve you anymore and it just didn't serve us anymore.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. At what point, but at that point, were you guys still like adhering to their dress code, the rules that they had with the dress code?
It's really funny because it's in your head, like I still to this day feel very uncomfortable about certain things.
Yeah.
Um just because I was raised in a world of, everything being very modest and we were not allowed to cut our hair, but it was very encouraged to have long hair because hair is a sign of beauty for women and you're not wearing a lot of jewelry and everything being very minimalistic and subtle and things like that. And so I mean I would say that yeah, for a long time I think we did kind of follow that just because that's what we knew.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that, like, as we moved away from that, I grew up not being allowed to wear pants.
Yeah.
My first pair of pants, I think I bought I think my parents bought them when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I was like, whoa. And I only owned like two pairs of pants until I was probably a teenager. And I started wearing pants a lot more. And it's still to this day, I tend to wear pants more, I think. And it's not that I don't like wearing dresses, but like I wore dresses for the first 10, 15 years of my life kind of mandatory. And so now I tend to just be like, yeah, I'd rather wear pants or shorts. But it took me a long time to move into being more comfortable with less modest clothing. And even to this day, it's just still kind of a fabric of who I am. In fact, we had a rule in our home that, everybody had to be dressed on the main level of the house, including boys. And so I'd go to other places, other people's houses, and like people would not have clothes on, like boys wouldn't have their shirts on. And my boys were like, I couldn't do that. Like I just couldn't handle it.
It's so interesting because when you really think about it, that's conditioning. So
Mhm.
whatever environment we grow up in and whatever we get taught, even if it's not anything that extreme, it's still conditioning. So for an example, like the other boys that were comfortable walking around without their shirts, that was conditioning too. Like
Mhm.
it's just whatever environment we grow up in. And the reality is we have, as parents, have a choice. We get to decide, like, what do we want to teach our kids? And that's the decision that every single parent has to make. Like, what do they want? And a lot of times it is a translation over from our culture and like what we were taught. I have to say, like, I I probably went a little bit more extreme the other way. Like I wasn't like insane, but I also like didn't have any like attachment to it. I was like, yeah, I didn't wear shorts. No, I did wear shorts the first summer, but I kind of like stayed away from dresses. I was like, I don't want to wear dresses. Like this is stupid. Like I
Yes.
wanted to like wear pants and shorts and I wear dresses now. I have no problem wearing dresses, but skirts, I'm like, take it or leave it. Like it's Um,
Mhm.
but it's really, really interesting. But I find myself, I'm also like really into fashion. So when you're like really into fashion, that translates differently. In fact, I have a girl that's reaching out to me that's in the New Order Amish. And she's reaching out to me and she's like, I really like fashion and makeup. And I would love to talk to you about that because I want to leave. I'm like, well, my first question is, how old are you?
Mhm.
Because that is the most important part is, are you 18?
Right.
Because if you're not 18, anyway, so we got to go to our first break here, but when we come back, I want you to think about that transition of you guys leaving, and you already shared a little bit, but then what has led you guys into what you are doing today? So we're going to dive into that when we come back. So guys, don't go anywhere. I'm Lizzie, your host on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. We are having a phenomenal conversation with my dear friend, Sharon Weaver. Before we continue, Sharon, I like to early on tell our listeners where they can find you and reach you. So share with me website. All of this stuff is going to be in the show notes too, but where's the best place for people to find you?
My personal website is just simple. It's sharoneweaver.com. And my business website is smarter-consulting.com.
I love
And you
that.
can find me on pretty much any social media,
Even TikTok.
even TikTok.
I think I found you the other day.
Not much out there, but I try.
So I was thinking about this while we were on break, going, what do you think has, other than work ethic and the modesty part that we have talked about? So what was really the structure of the culture that you grew up in with the church and stuff? Like, you guys went to church a lot, but what are some other things that were happening, if you don't mind diving into that a little bit?
Some other things that were happening in terms of what?
Like within the church. So like, for an example, like where I'm from, like we went to church every other Sunday, and then in between Sunday was rest Sunday. But like on a day to day, or like the rules, like who made the rules? Who made the rules of the church? Because what was the name of the church?
So I grew up in the Baptist religion, and my dad was actually ordained in the General Baptist
Okay.
denomination.
Yes.
And so that denomination actually creates the doctrine that you follow. So this is, in a lot of religions, there's a specific doctrine that you actually
Mhm.
follow. And what's really interesting is, so like when my parents come to visit me, they will actually research churches that are nearby and what Bibles they use, what interpretations they use, what doctrine they follow, to even decide if they want to go visit that church or not.
Really?
Oh yeah. And so it's all about the doctrine, right? The doctrine is like whether or not certain things can happen, what you can do, what you can't do, what decisions you need to make, what you can eat, what you can drink, how you can dress. And isn't that wild? Like they make like
Yeah.
all these decisions for what you can and cannot do. And so my husband and I talk a lot about that because we grew up in religions where, for example, you weren't allowed to watch movies.
Yeah.
And the idea really was that they didn't want you going to movie houses, but it was so outdated that they still followed these rules of, we don't want to let people go watch movies because then they're going to go to bad places. We were dry. We both grew up in a very dry home, so neither one of us grew up in a home with alcohol at all. And so drinking, we didn't drink until we were older because we didn't have any idea what that was like, and so like
Yeah.
we didn't even know what to drink, let alone how to do that. Well, that was a fun experiment once we started learning how to drink.
What was
you
your
know
what was your first drink?
well, I think my very first legal drink was probably on my 21st birthday. I was working backstage on a theatrical production at college, and my theater friends took me out to a bar, and I had a Long Island iced tea for my very first drink
Oh
when
my
I was 21.
gosh.
But
That's
yeah, there was lots of rules around all of the things, what we could do and what we couldn't do and who we were allowed to talk to. And I think a lot of it was, when I say the fabric of the church, we didn't have rest weeks. We went to Sunday morning church, we went to Sunday evening church. Often some places would have Sunday afternoon activities that you would go to, so that you were playing with kids in the church. You were hanging out with people in the church. Most people we knew ended up like even dating people within their own church. You didn't go outside the church to go find people or date people.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, was that a rule that they had to stay within the church?
It wasn't. I mean, it's a rule in terms of our parents were much more favorable to that. They really, the idea was that if it was somebody in the church, then it was kind of pre-approved, because they knew that you kind of believed the same things and that you would raise your kids the same way and things like that. But yeah, so if I had friends, if I wanted to have friends or if I wanted to meet people, having them be in the church was much better. And so, for example, my husband was a regular churchgoer, and so my parents were much more thrilled with the fact that he had been raised kind of in a similar culture, although he was in a different religion, but his family was also equally religious. And so I think a big part of it was that was our day-to-day life. It wasn't that we went to church on Sundays. we went Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evenings. And then a lot of times we would have like either Bible studies or activities on other evenings and other days. So we were there 3, 4, 5 times a week on average.
Yeah, you went to church way more than we did.
And that was our friend. That was our social club.
Yeah.
So all the people that we knew, all the people we talked to, all the people we hung out with, oftentimes the people you worked with or helped you get jobs might have been within the church. So I mean, if you think about the network of those people, that it really was the fabric of our day-to-day life for a very long time.
Well, and it does build community. So I know from a different church. I can't remember the name of the church it was that I had a conversation with someone last year about this. And she had the church that she was a part of was if you stayed there, they paid for all of your schooling, they got you the jobs, and you're promised like really, really good jobs. You're taken care of. But the minute that you walk away from the church, you literally lose everything.
Yep.
And I was like, whoa. But speaking of dating, where I'm from, I was from the Schwarzenegger Amish community, but that's the strictest order of Amish communities. But within the Schwarzenegger church, there's different sects of the order of that specific order. So like community here. So the way that it looked is like each community or sect had a different bishop, and under each bishop could be different rules. So yeah, so as a family, like if my family, because they have breakoffs all the time and separations all the time. And so I remember when the first one happened, and it was a big, big deal. And when that happened, basically what it means is it opens up the entire congregation to for the members of the church to decide, well, what bishop are they going to go with? And so when that happens, and then it's a period of time that's open, and they have to have their decision made by a certain time. And once that the doors are closed, there's no leaving.
Oh, wow.
And so with that being said, when it came to dating, you had to date within that, under that bishop, within that sect, in the Schwarzenegger. So there could be hundreds of other people in a different community, but you had no access to them for dating.
Yikes.
Had to be the slim pickings over here. And I just think about that because they also don't date crossover into like old order and new order. So like they're like way, way fancier than the Schwarzenegger Amish, and they're like super modernized. We call them liberal Amish because to this day, it's like you see like the things that they're advanced to, and you go, how did that happen? Like it's just advance. Whereas where I'm from, it's like take away. So it's really, really interesting. That's why I was asking that question about dating is what were your limits around that? Because it was very, very restrained where I was at, which when I started dating, I was like, I can't stay here. I was like, there's no options.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. I don't think my parents really wanted me to date at all.
But they were happy with the one that you chose, and then you got pregnant.
Yes. Yeah. Ultimately, they were happy with the one that I chose, and then I got pregnant. Well, and I got pregnant because my parents didn't believe in birth control either. So
do they? Oh, interesting. Well, yeah, we didn't do birth control either. Like, that's why my mom has 19 kids. So we got to go to our next break here, but we're going to dive further into this conversation here because this is really, really fascinating, but I really want to touch on what you're doing now because I think that it's really, really fascinating to hear like where you've come from and to what you are doing now. So we're going to dive into that when we come back. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm Lizzie, your host on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited to dive into this next section because I think this is a really, really fascinating and powerful moment to dive into, because I'm actually really curious, Sharon, like what inspired you? Like, you guys didn't have tons of technology when you were growing up. So I'm curious, like, what inspired you and your husband at the same time, right? To like go through school and get into technology. So take it away. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so it was really funny because, we didn't have tech when we were younger, and like we only had it in certain places, and I thought it was really fascinating. And I talk a lot about women in tech and the fact that I thought nerdy boys were the only ones that could be in tech, like girls couldn't be in tech. That wasn't for girls. And so my husband actually wanted to go into computers. And so during high school, he studied computers, and then he went to college and he got a computer science degree. And I was like, well, that's for nerdy boys. So I actually started pre-med, and my degree is in developmental psychology. And I worked in retail pharmacy, and kind of along the way, I just kept getting kind of pulled back a little bit into like we had a computer at work. And so I would kind of get good at that. And then ultimately I realized, I was like, well, I want to go to med school, but I can't afford to pay for med school on the salary I'm on. So I started looking around for options, and they had this thing at my local college that was like, do this interactive media program and you could make, with some enormous amount of money, like $10 an hour or something. And and I was like, okay, I'm going to take this program so I can make more money so that I can pay to go to med school. And I went and I did this program, and it was right at the beginning of the program. They're like, we're going to introduce you to this thing called the internet. And we're going to teach you how to make these things called web pages. And so I started contracting, making web pages for like celebrities and shows and things like that. Because of course that was the only people who wanted to pay for web pages at the time. And it was really nice because it was flexible. One of the things that I had struggled with for a long time is, especially coming from the background that we come with, I was responsible for taking care of my children and my husband and my parents and my siblings and my, everybody around me. And my mom, would be like, hey, can you help do this? Or my grandparents and my aunt and uncle, and can you help with this and can you help with that? And you're not allowed to say no.
Yeah.
And so so I was constantly like having to leave work to go do something. And it's very difficult to, like, I don't want to lose my job, but I also have to take care of my family. And so I was always being pulled between the two things. And when I got this interactive media program, it let me get contracts, and contracts gave me flexibility because I could work and then be off, and then work and then be off, and work and be off. I could work the hours I wanted to. And so I wouldn't even say that I was like full on in tech at that point, except for the fact that I was just doing something that was flexible for my lifestyle and made more money than I could have made in the other options. And then what ended up happening is basically I just started looking for a job where I was like, I just want to be able to do this and make more money. And I just kept getting more tech jobs. And I loved what I did. I love being able to code. I love being able to do things, but I struggled. Like I really struggled with getting hired in as a developer as a girl. Now my husband, like right on in, he, full-time development job. But for me,
What year was this?
let's see, I started working in tech in 1997, and I think my husband got his first full-time development job in like 99 or 2000.
Okay.
So a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Because I feel
Long
like it
time ago.
wouldn't be like that today now if a woman walked in and said, hey, I want to, I don't know, is it?
It's less bad. It's less than 20% of all technical roles are held by women.
Wow.
And by the time of age 35, women in technology tend to leave tech and go into other positions. So actually it is still very, very small. It's larger than when I started, but it's still very, very small compared to the national average in other fields, which is more around 50%. So it's a very low woman to men ratio. And so
Do we know like why at that age they tend to leave?
Primarily because good old boy club and women have responsibilities at home. So it's that same problem that I said, when I was in a job and I would need to take care of my mom or my kids or my siblings, and jobs can't be, well, jobs tend to not be flexible around more of a woman's schedule.
Yeah.
And when we think about maternity leave and things like that, it's just not great for trying to push a career in the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's difficult. Yeah, I could see that. I used to train a guy that had he had like a tech printing company. He was pretty big, like a big deal. And I respected him so much with how he worked his schedule with his employees. Like he had mostly women that worked for him. And the reason that he did that is because he's like, if you tell a woman like, hey, you can choose pretty much what hours you want to work based around your kid's schedule, like
Wow,
they get the most done.
that's
Like
amazing.
the time that they are actually at work, they get to drop their kid off, go to work, get the hours in that they need to get in, and then go pick up their kid. He's like, they're the most effective at their job. And so he would just hire women. He's like, people are dumb not to hire women.
I think that's great. No, I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
No, it's absolutely phenomenal. And it made his employees, one, happier because they were allowed to have a schedule around their kids' schedule for school and stuff. But it also made his company a lot more successful and effective because they were happier and they were able to produce better. And some of them were able to work part-time at home and then part-time in the office. And just giving that kind of flexibility, it allowed him to tap into their strengths. And that's what made his company as good as it did because of that, which I thought was,
I need you to come share that story with my women in tech groups.
oh, yes. I love that. Yeah. So then you guys got into tech. Where are you guys at now? Like what are you doing now?
Yeah.
Lead us into that.
So I did a few years in corporate. I spent about 10 years in corporate as my kids got older and I had more time.
Mm-hmm.
But then what ended up happening is I really felt like I was hitting my head. And
Mm.
so I walked away from corporate, started my own business, and just went out to consult for myself. And
Oh,
I did
wow.
that for a few years. And then I had all of these women and people coming to me and saying, wait, how did you do that? And so I wanted to help them.
Okay.
And so I ended up starting my own business
Smarter consulting.
to be able to do that.
Yeah. I love that. So when did you start Smarter Consulting?
I started that in June of 2017.
Okay, so that's what is that? What is that? 6 years ago? 2017. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But that's not that long ago that you guys did that. So you were in the corporate field before you then launched your own business in 2017. Awesome. So then what has that been like? Like what do you guys do now with Smarter Consulting? Like what's that business? Because we talked a little bit about that in the very beginning of what is like how to make technology like work for you. So I'm curious how you guys approach that, Sharon. Oh, hold on.
Sorry.
We got this.
Somehow I accidentally muted myself. So ask that one more time. Say that one more time.
So what do you guys, what's Smarter Consulting now? Because you talked a little bit about in the beginning, you talked a little bit about how to make technology work for you and make your life
Right.
easier. So what is that you guys do now?
Oh, yeah. So we basically go into businesses and we ask them, what is it that you need? And a lot of times people think they have technology problems, but then once we talk to them, we uncover that they actually have process problems or people problems,
Mm.
and technology problems, of course. But I think a lot of the big misunderstanding is that people get tech. They don't understand how to use it. They haven't been trained on it. That's not implemented correctly. They spend all this money on it, and then they feel like they've wasted all of this time and money on something that they don't understand and they don't know how to use. And so people will call us and say, we're struggling with this problem. We need this thing fixed. And we'll go in and find out what their actual problem is and try to help them so that we can help them understand what they have, use it better, and get more out of it.
Okay, so they already have the software of the technology that they're using. What you guys are doing is coming in and saying, "Hey, we know the software that you have, or the tools and the platform that you guys are using. You guys just don't know how to use it. Let us teach you how to do that."
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do. In general, sometimes people ask us to help them pick software, but for the most part, it's somebody who already has software that we are experts at. And so we can come in and help them to really get the most out of the software that they've got.
Yeah.
We move files around and re-architect stuff and make solutions and do all kinds of cool stuff. But for the most part, it's really just people not understanding how to use and get the most out of what they already have.
Are you guys primarily working with like really big corporate companies on this?
I would say about half is enterprise, and enterprise usually means that there's like several thousand users or more. And then about half small and medium-sized businesses, which could be, anywhere from a handful of people, maybe up to 500, 600 users.
Yeah. What has your experience been with all the new AI and chat GPT technology? And I'm really, really curious your thoughts on that and what you guys are doing with it, maybe
I was
even.
wondering, that's the buzzword right now, right? AI.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hang out in the Microsoft stack, and Copilot is what everybody's talking about right now. But from an AI perspective, what's really interesting is my entire career has been around people getting more out of their software.
Mhm.
And like I said, having the software serve them instead of them serving their software. So where a lot of people are really nervous and scared of I think I'm really excited about AI because AI is going to make it so that if you want something out of your software, you can use natural language to do that. So instead of having to figure out where on this um, gigantic panel of buttons am I supposed to do something, instead you can simply say, can you do this for me? So for example, instead of having to know which buttons I need to click to make a PowerPoint presentation, I can go into Copilot and I can say, make me a presentation about this topic with these bullet points, with these photos, and it will do that for you. And I don't need to know where all those buttons are to be able to do that. And that's a very, very simple task, but
Yes.
sometimes it can be very difficult for somebody who doesn't understand how to use the software. So when we think about AI, the idea of AI, I mean, we talk about all the fancy stuff that AI can do behind the scenes, but truthfully, if we harness what AI can do for us, it can help us to be able to communicate with software in a way that we've never really done before.
I agree with that 100%. I've personally for myself, primarily used ChatGPT for things. I've never done the PowerPoint presentation. I would be very, very interested in seeing what happens when you do that. But I've talked to several people that I brought up ChatGPT and it's immediate shutdown. Like, no, like ChatGPT, please don't. Like, it's not. And the reality is it's not that you can't use chat gpt. It's exactly what you said. You have to tell it what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm using it, I'm putting my own words in and then I'm telling it what to do. And then I pull it and I say, okay, I don't like this. I reword it and make it myself. And you also want to make sure that you're not copying someone else that's having the exact same thing. But what was really, really interesting to me, the first time that I used ChatGPT, I had never submitted anything. It's kind of scary when you think about it, but I went into ChatGPT, I created an account, and I put a topic in, and I said, write me whatever on that specific topic. It spoke like me.
Mm-hmm.
It wrote back my language, and I had never used it. And I was like, just pulled this from my whole entire system, my website, my emails, like it literally was speaking like me. And then what the other thing too is it has actually saved me so much time.
Yes.
Like I could say, hey, I want to write a blog on this specific topic, and I want it to be like this. I give it keywords, tell it what it is, and then I tell it to write it. And the first time that I did that for a blog, I was like, oh my gosh, this is
Mhm.
insane. And that specific one, I didn't have to do that much editing. I did some editing, but not. And then the cool thing about it is if there was something that I didn't like in the first round, all I did is I went back in and I said, take these words out. And it did. And I was like, I just saved 2 hours worth of work in like 10 minutes. And so you have to just know how to use it. And speaking of automations and AI and using technology to make it work for you, I recently started using ManyChat
Mm-hmm.
for my social media and to utilize it with, because I have such a big following, it doesn't make sense for me not to. And I wanted to like build out my email list. And within just a couple weeks, I've increased my email list by thousands just
Wow.
by integrating ManyChat and having a lead magnet that brings people in, because they did a study on ManyChat and they said ManyChat has about a 60 to 70% increase of conversion to get people into your email versus not having ManyChat.
Wow.
It's quite
That's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, you just make the system do the work for you, and it's faster and much, much more efficient, and it leaves more time on your table to do other
Absolutely.
things. So anyway, this is really, really fascinating. I love this stuff, but we got to go to our last break here. But when we come back, I want you to think about what some things are that you want to leave the audience with. Well, like, what do you want to tell them? What do you want them to walk away with? Share that with them. And that will be the conclusion of today's show. But we're going to go to our last break. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. Real quick note here. We're going to have Sharon's website, her social links and everything in the show notes, so you can reach her there. So make sure that you go check her out there. And then next week's show, I'm going to have another guest on that I'm really, really excited about. I'm going to have my friend Jana Swan on, and we're going to be talking about the art of healthy emotional regulation, which this is going to be and Sharon, you actually know her too. We met her in the same mastermind that we were a part of, which we both are not a part of anymore, but it was still amazing. Like that's a beautiful thing about masterminds, is you get to meet beautiful, wonderful, amazing people. And then at some point you say, okay, like it's time to move on. And that's okay. That's what masterminds are. And that's what it's all about. So guys are going to want to come back next week for that show as well. So Sharon, take it away. share with our audience and listeners here, what are some final things you want to share with them?
I mean, I think the most important thing is really just to be you and be authentically you. I say this a lot, is that no matter where you come from or, what you've had in your past, that you get to choose where you are today and what you want to do with your future going forward. And let go of things that don't serve you anymore.
Mhm.
If it's not making you a better person, if it's not giving you value, then it's okay to let it go and to start doing things that do bring value. And I think sometimes we get caught up in doing the same thing over.
Yeah. It's so true because I recently shared this on my social and I've been talking about it, but um speaking of letting go is like absolutely right. Like if you are, let's just say you're in a group, in a relationship, whatever the case may be, even church, like a church, and like the church that you were part of, it wasn't serving you anymore, and you guys said, okay, we have to let go of this. But the exact same thing is with so many other areas of our life. Like if we have to constantly observe where we're at and where we want to go and what is preventing us from going where we want to go in the current situation. One of the things that my mentor taught me actually is we're talking about, leaving a group, or if we're in a mastermind or in a church or whatever, and we're feeling the need to leave. He taught me that the question you have to ask yourself is, am I a different person than I was when I entered?
Hmm.
And if you're a different person than what you were when you entered, you already got what you needed, and it's time for you to move on to the next thing. And I was like, wow, that is incredibly powerful and so true. And so, but a lot of times, if we're emotionally attached to it, we don't want to let go of, because we're fearing of being alone or being judged or missing out, those kinds of things. Like we're afraid of that. And so we don't want to let go of the exact thing that's preventing us from moving forward.
Yep, 100%.
It's really, really powerful when you come to that realization. And you guys did that. Like, what do you think has been the biggest like transformation of your life?
Hmm. You know, I think we've done so many things. And last year we sold our house and we moved to Florida.
Mhm.
And we spent 5 weeks in Europe after we sold our house so that we could go just like be free for a little while. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is we moved so far away from everybody just to kind of have some independence from everything. And I know a lot of people do that when they're younger, but we didn't have that opportunity and it just didn't work out. And so now that we're older and our kids are grown, we wanted to go experience moving, away. And I mean, the bonus is that it's sunshiny and warm,
Yeah.
all the time. But really, I think, being willing to go outside your comfort zone and do something that's different so that you can grow yourself is really important for everybody.
Yeah, I think people thrive on comfort, and comfort actually gets you in trouble because you you can't. You cannot grow when you're comfortable all the time. Sure, like
Yeah.
sometimes we want to be comfortable, but like at where in your life do you need to make yourself uncomfortable? It's the same example as going to the gym, and if you're doing workouts and you're always doing workouts that it's just comfortable and you're not pushing yourself, you're not going to get the results that you want.
Right.
So
Like,
that goes with business. I don't know if you're familiar or if you've read or listened to the book 10X, but
mm,
10X is very, very much talking about that. Is like if you want to go 10X in your business, you have to do things completely different than if you're wanting to go 2X. And when I was listening to that, I went, well, that's the same with your health. Like if you really want to evaluate with your health and where you want to go, are you willing to change 80 to 90% of your habits of what you're doing in order to 10x of what you desire? And the desire behind that and what you like really want is what matters, like your why. And so that's something that I want you guys as listeners just to think about. Is there anything else that we got 30 seconds? Any other final words that you want to share, Sharon?
thank you for having me on the show.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a wonderful and amazing conversation. Guys, I'm going to be back next week with another amazing and wonderful guest. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the I'm Not Fine show. Lizzie Ends returns Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, have the best week of your life by making choices that take you from feeling fine to feeling amazing.